constantly pushing myself into an environment that I'm, and plus the get up and everything.
Okay. Okay.
Like all of this makes me very uncomfortable, but it's a
Mhm.
good uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, I think that always the challenge. This is what I'm thinking, that the challenge actually makes winners, right? If you are not challenging
Ooh, I
yourself,
like that.
you cannot win actually, because you're just sitting in one spot kind of, and you are surrounded with all the same kind of things, like you are in this bubble, right? And I think until you challenge yourself, you cannot just win, because winning is not something you will come to you. You need to go and take it, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um where my counter goes.
I see the counter. People are joining. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone.
Hello and welcome, and we will wait a minute or two for everybody to join.
I'm having flashbacks from previous demo fests.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Are we good to start, Sammy? We should maybe then give it a start then.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us for Whiteboarding in the Age of Demo Automation, a tale of dragons and wizards with Lydia Vasileva. My name is Daniel Zimnicki, I'm the architect at Consensus, and I will be your moderator for today's session. The Demo Fest is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the new era of demo automation. Our platform gets your buyers what they need when they need it. It then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. As a result, you will see faster close time, larger deals, and higher close rates. You can learn more at goconsensus.com or view the automated micro demo at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. We encourage you to participate in today's session. On the right side of your console, you can see a few ways to engage with us throughout the session. The chat function will allow you to engage with us as well as other attendees. Our speaker will be taking questions from the audience at the end of the session, but we encourage you to ask questions at any time through the Q&A box. If at any time you are having technical difficulties, head to the GIR on the bottom of your screen, and here you will see a help document to help troubleshoot common issues. And now I would like to introduce our speaker. Lydia's sole purpose is to make pre-sales even more awesome with her pre-sales coaching and enablement business, PacketMage. She is the first female pre-sales podcast co-host of the Wandering Tech podcast. And Lydia religiously earns awards every time she speaks at any of our DemoFest or DemoFest X events. And with that, I will turn the rest of the time over to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome, folks. I decided that this time I am going to do something even more extreme to try to prove my point that pre-sales is really about being memorable. So thank you for joining. Thank you. Thank you so much. Forewarning, this is not going to last too long because the beard is incredibly itchy and this is going to fall very quickly. So if folks are interested in taking screenshots, I suggest you do them early in the session because, again, this is not going to last too long. But welcome, and thank you so much for choosing. I know it's so hard. DemoFest is so hard to pick which sessions to actually join versus which ones to skip. But also thank you, folks, for watching the recorded afterwards. Art, are you judging about the beard or just the how long we've been actually seeing each other for the last time? I've changed. I think I've aged a bit since the last time we spoke about a month back. But thank you, folks. If you can't tell by the tone of my voice and the get up, the goal of this session is really to be as a refresher between all of the valuable and amazing sessions you're getting in between and like throughout DemoFest. And this is more about focusing on something that I truly believe is incredibly important, which is to be memorable, especially in the age that we're entering now, with all of the tools and all of the automations and everything coming forth. Without further ado, I also want to encourage everyone to please be interactive in the chat as much as possible. I love the GIFs. If you have any more wizarding GIFs, please, add them on there. Any questions, please add them in the Q&A. And also, can I get a quick round of applause for Daniel, who is moderating for the first time at DemoFest? And I'm very glad to have him as my moderator. So, thank you so much. It's amazing. But yeah, so without further ado, let me take you through the little adventure that we will go through together today. Starting with, as most adventures do, at the tavern, we're going to talk about why should you even care about whiteboarding and being memorable and having this interaction with folks in this, in today's world of demo automation. Then the first part of our journey is going to take us through the chasm of doom, and we're talking about where pre-sales are today and where are they going to lead going into the future. Then we're going to throughout that journey of ours, we're going to stop into enchantment school to actually learn a little bit of the theory around why does all of this matter. Then further down the line, we're going to meet potentially, hopefully, a wise white wizard that is actually going to teach us the how of what we're doing today. And I'll teach you all of the secrets of what I'm doing today. I know there was a couple of folks in Rue Dickens' session as well asking how he does it. I don't know if he's using the same methods as me, but he is definitely the dream setup. But hey, this does as well. And then at the end, not all, but most adventures, we will be dealing with a dragon. In this case, we're dealing with a deal dragon. But by the way, before I actually kick into, the start of our adventure, I do want to highlight something. Unfortunately, I haven't been very well for the last couple of months. So this was a very last minute setup. If I could only show you the chaos in front of me. Magic is obviously very unstable. All of the setup is fairly new. So please, if something does break, apologies in advance. I'm hoping that it won't. But yeah. So shall we then get started? The most important part, really, of any adventure is picking what type of adventure you're going to be. And I'm really sorry, folks, but this is impossible to talk to. So 1 second, please. There you go. Hello. Whew. That's a lot easier to talk. I was wondering how long that beard could last. I should have put a bet on how actually long it's going to last. But yes, so we're talking about different adventurers. And what I mean by that is that within the pre-sale space, we all have our different characteristics. We all have our different strengths. And I truly believe, there you go, 8 minutes in. We all have our different characteristics that make us stand apart in one way or another, right? And I think we can easily identify ourselves as that. I'll take a gander that most of the folks joining DemoFest understand the value of being on a buyer enablement journey versus just being the technical speaker or the person who's just there to do a demo, right? Like, we already know this, and we've known this for many years, that this is the way we are going towards. But we still, within that little space, we have our own specialties. We still know the person who's really good at presenting. We still know the person who's really good at documenting. What my goal for today really is to try to make most of us magicians. Right? And by that, I mean to be able to weave a story, to be able to do something either visually or in the way we speak or the way we actually present different ideas so unique that you will never forget that. You don't have to all put a wig on to actually make an impression, but we do, and we can use the different tools we have available to do that. But let's talk about really, why should you care to do that? Why should you even want to take up magic in one way or another? So I have a couple of figures here based on the consensus reports, which if you haven't had the chance to actually look at, please do. It is absolutely fantastic, the work that folks there do. A couple of numbers that really stood apart to me was 60% of all demos are still entirely NDSC. So on the question of why do we care and why do we want to do, to put the biggest impact that we can, is because we're already, so much of the work is on us. So that leads to a problem, right? So we tend to have pretty long hours. When I was an active field SC, I felt like I was always the one sort of like working until midnight or trying to do things over the weekend. Like I would have a chat with my account manager every Monday morning, and most of the time the conversation would start like, so I've been working on this thing over the weekend and I want to show you something before we jump on the call with the customer. And obviously, because my account manager was amazing, he was like, you really shouldn't do that. But I felt compelled, right? Because so much is really on us. But at the same time, we're spending so much time on this, but most of it is still intro demos. And by the way, this is again based on the consensus report. So what does that mean? That means that we're getting a lot of repetition of the things we're doing, long hours doing that, leading to an inevitable burnout. Raise your hand if you have been burned out, unfortunately, throughout your career in pre-sales. I was an active pre-sales field person for 3.5 years, and I had it twice. I had it once almost right at the start where I thought that I was making a huge mistake and that I chose the wrong career. And then I had it almost at the very end, sort of like the last sort of 6 to 7 months. And it's really annoying. And for people managers on the call, keep in mind, especially like, first of all, for the individual contributor, like it takes so much of your personal life as well into this the situation that you find yourself in, but also your productivity just takes an absolute nosedive. It is really infuriating because you want to do so much stuff, yet you never really are capable because it's just so much. And a lot of that problem also arises from the fact that we're misaligned between what is important to us and what we're actually doing. Nobody in that report states, and none of the folks that I talk to on a daily basis say, oh yeah, you know what's my favorite part to do? Intro demos, right? The generic demos, the harbor tour demos that we all talk about. Yeah, that's my favorite part. Nobody says that, right? Because they're boring, they're repetitive, and we know they don't work because we don't see the interaction from the customer. So we're completely misaligned between what is important. And based on the report, what's important to us is obviously the learning piece. We want to learn more. We want to continue being an authority on their topics. And at the same time, we also want to do more discovery. We want to understand better the people we're actually talking to. The other element to that is also that we need to add in a little bit more of that effort to personalize, right? So why should you care? Is because more of the work you're doing needs to be more personalized, especially as we're coming into that ARR world. If you're not already in there, and I think this is especially true for folks more on the infrastructure, on the cybersecurity side, on the more tech-heavy pre-sales world, you're going to be forced into this sooner rather than later. So you need to stop thinking less functions and features and more how do we actually personalize that messaging and the values that we're actually presenting to our customers. Another shocking number that I saw in that report is that 43% of companies having no demo automation. And it's not because the number is shockingly low, it's because it's shockingly high. But also, if you think about it, it is, folks that are aware of consensus in one way or another, which is a demo automation company, which, oh yeah, of course, these folks will be far more aware or have a higher chance of being customers. I'm willing to bet that because of just the sizing group of that research, I'm pretty sure that the actual number of tech selling companies is much, much, much lower. I did have and mind you, I'm saying this also a little bit from experience. So I used to be a field SC for VMware, highly technical company. I had everything lined up for me, though, except for the fact that I didn't have a budget. I was an individual contributor, but I had leadership on board. I had a business case. I had everything already started. I had quotes. I had everything ready for a demo automation tool, and nothing ever came through. And that was so incredibly frustrating to me because it felt like there was just nothing. So that's still an incredibly difficult process for people to actually go through. And then the other figure, and this came actually from Doug from yesterday, speaking about that 17% of our time, actually, 70% of the buyer journey is face-to-face with us. So technically, if you think about that big buyer journey that our potential prospects and customers are going through, we only have such a tiny amount to make the biggest impact. So how do we actually make that big impact that we want people to be able to, actually listen and understand our setup? So this is where we go on our first challenge. Right from the front door of our tavern, we are greeted with the chasm of the future. So if we look at today and where we are as SEs, we know what's important. We have the tools in place. We know what we want to do. But really, there's the biggest challenge we have is getting to what the buyers actually want, which is that buyer-driven journey. So we can either do it two ways. We can either wait for leadership and the company overall, especially if you're a big corporation, to slowly and at some point, hopefully, surely, build a bridge between what we're doing today as SEs and what we want to do for the future. And I think a lot of the sessions you're going to hear across DemoFest is more towards that bridge building exercise, which is fantastic, right? And we do need that. But I'm here to challenge you to say that what if, just if, you have certain individuals wielding some certain type of magic that are able to just take the plunge and throw themselves over the chasm whilst the bridge is being built. I'm not saying choose one or the other. I'm just saying that maybe there is a different way, that whilst we're already working with leadership from the top to convince organizations on a broader scale that they need to change their approach to pre-sales, what if we as individual contributors also make our mark and try to change things from the bottom up of the organizational structure? So you can wait for that bridge, but also you can help with it if you have that willpower. And a lot of the individuals in different organizations that do have the ability to make that jump are folks with high willpower. Not particularly with a special skill set, not with a particularly different side of their brain that actually is operating in a different way from the typical SE, but they do tend to shift sort of in the middle. So there are folks usually that do have some sort of creative ability or any sort of other interests outside of the day-to-day, oh, I'm just here to sell some tech. And the more I speak to folks, the more I'm willing to make the assumptions that most of us are like that, which is we're not like that at work. Most of us do have a side thing that we're very passionate about. Imagine if you had the ability to take that little side passion, like in my case, art, for example, and make that your unique selling point, the point where you make your buyers actually memorize who you are, what you're selling, because at the end of the day, don't forget, the buying process is a person process. Whilst, yes, logically, you can say that, oh, if you have all of the features and functions that fit perfectly in the solution, the capabilities to help this particular customer, of course they're going to pick you. But that's not really the case, right? That's not really what we're seeing. At the end of the day, it is a human process. So for it to be useful to you as the seller, as the technical seller, as the person who has the biggest impact on this process, you really, really need to understand that this is completely in your power to do. And I say it like fling yourself over the chasm as if it's, nothing really. And in reality, that's really the question we should be asking ourselves, which is, worst case scenario, what's the worst that can happen? And the reality is that the worst that can happen is that you're no longer in control of your own fate. You're no longer in control of how you approach your customers. And that's really something that I want to help you folks today try to avoid. So, further down the path, welcome to Enchantment School. So let's go through some theory first before we actually jump into the practicalities of some of the spells, right? So what I really liked about a Forrester study that I was reading through a couple of weeks back was that it's a very big number. 88% of all decision makers, aka the people with the budget, the people who actually can bring a change within an organization, want a chat. They want a discussion. They don't want to be presented to. They don't want it to be demoed to. They want to have a conversation. So a lot of what we are being taught, especially in the earlier stages of our careers, of, oh, you need to be able to perfectly, indicate what, what's the most valuable things in the, in our portfolio, what's the most important things here. This is how you need to present it. You need to start with obviously the logos and everything else. So hopefully nobody else, nobody does that anymore. But hey, I've been proven I've been proven wrong before. What people really want is someone to have a conversation with them. More importantly, they want a conversation with someone who has the authority to actually answer their questions directly, not fiddling about, not trying to oversell them on something, but really realistically sit down and have a conversation with them. So there are some numbers being thrown around on the internet about like, how much improvement that is. I couldn't find a original source of this. So this, I will be very, keen on actually getting some numbers behind this. But from my own personal experience, from talking to multiple folks, obviously within my field SE career, and now as an independent consultant, what switching to chat versus presentation does, it leads to higher lead conversions, shorter time to decision, which, by the way, is your biggest challenge here. Most folks think that it's not about your competition. Your biggest challenge is not competition. Your biggest challenge is deciding not to do anything. Because if you remember, and I've said this on many of my previous DemoFest sessions, is that businesses want only three things, right? They only want three things, which is what? Make money, save money, reduce risk. That is all any company ever wants. So really, if we don't convince them that whatever they're doing is hitting either all three or at least one of them, no decision is going to be the default answer. And then obviously shorter sales cycles. And you will also, a really important point is that a lot of these are aligned also with a lot of the SC KPIs, or the things that are really important to us to understand that we are doing a good job at what we're actually doing day to day, right? So remember the chasm? The other thing that we really need to be aware is that as these things become more and more important, especially as we're adding in more and more KPIs, we are being moved slowly but surely in a lot of organizations to the pre-sales team. We're being moved up the funnel. If folks were in Mark's session right before mine, he talked about the different levels of pain. We're moving less so into the, there's a, there was a thing, even like people still use this, like no qualification, no demo. That will soon not really be a thing we can do, because we need to move further up the funnel. We need to actually have that influence before we get a chance to speak to people. Because remember, 17% of the buyer journey is up to you. Only 17. So why don't we, as a collective, expand that influence a little bit further on before it actually becomes a mandatory thing for us to do? So another question that I really want to talk about is, because we're talking about our role, or the human role, in this age of demo automation. So another why that I think we should tackle here is, why should you, in particular, if you're an individual contributor, why should you care about demo automation, right? Demo automation sounds amazing to replace you potentially, which, by the way, that is not the case whatsoever. We have so much value to give outside of just being a demo monkey, as I kept on referring to myself internally at VMware. We're not just that. We're so much more. So what does demo automation, and why should you potentially be a champion internally to your organization for demo automation? And I'm stealing something from a friend of mine, Adam Freeman, who a while back coined the digital deflection. So the idea here is that we, by having these tools in place, by having these automated demo processes, again, be it either with frequently asked questions, videos, etc., however you want to do it, whatever that process looks like to you, it actually allows us more time. It's deflecting a lot of the noise. It's deflecting a lot of the things that our day-to-day, again, the noise that we get day-to-day of just, can you do an intro demo? Can you do this? Can you do that? It gives us the time to do the things that actually matter to us, learning, developing ourselves, quantifying things, and being able to have more meaningful conversations with our potential customers and prospects. So, by the way, and I do want to highlight something here, that just because something is hands-free doesn't mean it's human-free. And I'll talk a little bit later on where does, all of this with the whiteboarding and the personality and everything else comes in as part of the demo automation cycle, specifically with the likes of tools like Consensus. So really, what I really wanted to do is to leave you with a focus on whiteboarding, right? So, and for folks that haven't had the chance to join me either in London or in the other DemoFest sessions, the three main things that I talk about when it comes to whiteboarding is this: competency, right? Being able to whiteboard at a notice, and not being able to be worried about and not having anything prepared, not having slides to hide behind, not having anything to sort of like lean on as you're talking. That showcases to your potential prospects how confident, what your competency level is on the topic. And as someone who completely switched for almost 2 years, only to whiteboarding with no slides, the different perspective that people have on you as you walk into a room is completely different. Next thing is really about what we want to do. So the first one is what about our prospects want from us. The second thing is what we want. Most pre-sales folks want to be a trusted advisor. And the easiest path to that is to, again, clue into that competency and to feel like you are owning the room or the conversation that you're actually walking in. Next, and the last, and certainly most important to me, is around clarity. At the end of the day, the most important part is to make sure that the folks you're talking to actually understand what you're trying to convey to them, and vice versa, right? For you to give the space to your potential prospect that you're talking to, what is important to them. Clarity is the most important part in everything we do. The most important thing, if folks leave the session with one thing, and I want to, like, again, highlight this, I highlight it in every session I do, a confused mind always says no. If people don't understand what the heck you're saying, that's it. Game over. You've unfortunately have to try again. But for us in this case, we're moving a little bit further into our journey. And this is a topic that actually I was a little bit on the fence if I should talk about. But I think it's really important as we're talking about demo automation is to really understand something. We're talking about content creation here, right? We are talking about taking whatever's in our head, underneath our hats, and figure out how do we actually relay this into a format. And for most folks, especially for folks that are so much more into the consultants, technical, professional services space, the idea of creating something relatively artistic or whatever it means, like recording yourself on video and or like trying to create a script or anything else is terrifying. And by the way, absolutely, I agree with you. It is scary. The first videos I made, I was horrible. Like I had to re-record them 4 times because I didn't like them, and there was nothing about that. So what I did, and what I would suggest most folks do, is find yourself party members. Find yourself people within the organization that have a certain set of skills that can potentially help you. Either folks that are far more available to talk on camera and are less worried than you. You can write the script for them to read out, and for both of you to benefit from the result at the end. Find folks within the organization that have video editing skills. Find folks within the organization that will help you in one way or another, and create this sort of party for you to move on and be able to actually work together as you're going forward. So this is a question that I have for folks. But before that, I do also want to acknowledge something, that we're talking a lot about content factories, right? Because especially this is a big thing in the AI tooling and everything else. This is definitely a set of things that we need to be considering, again, as an organization, right? Content factory and all of that needs to come from the top down. The reason I'm saying this is because if folks haven't ever tried to request a new set of tools from IT as part of a bigger organization, the lead time to that tends to be between 6 months and never. And that was, again, the case with me when I was trying to do that in the past. So what you can do is, you can again still be a champion. Whoop, okay, I think the hat has to go now. You can still be a champion for folks that, and showcase and actually lead a lot of those charges. But at the same time, you can make a difference from your own day-to-day. So a question for the chat, and an opportunity for me to actually put my hat away. What is preventing you right now, if you're not creating content already? So then let me rephrase that question. Are you creating content right now that you're sharing with folks, either internally, with your prospects, on LinkedIn, wherever? Just say yes in the chat. Or if no, would you be willing to tell us why not? What's actually stopping you from doing that? And the answer might be a very logical one, which is time, right? I don't have the time to do all this stuff because of all of the other things that I'm already doing. I'm just checking the chat. Saying, yep. Ashley saying yes timidly. Maria is like, yes, but we're moving slow. Okay. Definitely time, and just the fear of being irrelevant. Recording consensus videos. Thank you, Christina, for that. Christina, sorry. I'm just going to wait for a couple more folks to join in on that chat. But I'll tell you, by the way, what was my blocker when I was still a field SC. My blocker was fear of oh, what if this fails, right? What if I make what if my boss tells me off because I'm doing this? And it actually took me a really, really long time to sort of just take the charge and create a 6-minute video, which, by the way, just to give you an example, so I was covering the entirety of the UK, like public sector. And to me, the biggest sort of time sink was that initial 30 minutes of all of my demos when I was explaining a particular set of technologies over and over and over again. I was like a music box, right? You just wind me up and I just kept on saying the same things over and over and over again. So what I did is I recorded a lot shorter version of that for a specific subset of customers. So I did it for higher education. And just before every call, I would just send that link. It was a YouTube link, right, on my own personal channel, mind you, which just had that video. But that was the way I sort of like went around and actually just did something that would save me potentially half an hour, per meeting, where I don't have to explain that. I can jump straight into the meaty bits of it. And also, it gave me a lot of kudos, turns out, at the end, when I did do it at the end. When I finally posted it, one, the feedback from customers was amazing. Right? Everyone was so happy that they got to see something at their own rate, at their own time, whenever they had the time for it, and I didn't have to do that. And also, salespeople loved it, because instead of having to wait for me for a week to be able to have availability for them and their customer, I had the ability to just say, like, okay, let's book some time for next week. In the meantime, send this over, right? And just let them have a look and let me know if there's any feedback on that. And really, that's what I found to be the easiest thing to actually do. And you can start very small, right? You can start with just the slides that you usually do. And again, just record yourself, or ask someone else to record for you if you're worried about like the way you sound or the way you look, if there's anything else that you're concerned, when it comes to that. But there's so like the knowledge's there. The ability for you to do it is there. It's just about getting it out there. Thank you so much for folks engaging. But yes, time, and to ensure you get it right. You won't, that's a really funny thing. You won't get it right the first time, and that would be perfectly fine, because if you choose a smaller niche, right? And that's why, if you notice in my example, I didn't say the entirety of the UK. I picked a video for a small subset of my customers as a trial, just to see what happens. And by the way, the results of that video was quite, if I can say so myself, it was quite good. My video had more views than most of the marketing funded videos, like the official professional ones, which made me very proud of myself. But also the internal feedback that I got was like, oh my goodness, like, can you come help us do this video? Can you help us do the other video? And suddenly the position I had within the company completely changed from just another SE to an SE that can do some bits of magic, and people would actually listen to her. It was fantastic. And especially in your fight to get demo automation, if that is your goal, it's amazing to actually, be able to move further up that. But yeah, enough about the theory. Let us talk a little bit about the practicalities. And, even though I've lost the beard somewhere along the way, let me talk to you about how can you do bits of what I'm doing now. And I saw Ellie's comment about that they're not Hollywood quality. No, let me let you in on a secret. People don't want Hollywood quality, because if that's what they wanted, all of the marketing, all of the shiny corporate videos that everyone creates, other than Apple are an exception, would be watched a lot more than they are. And the reality is that nobody wants that. If you look into social media and sort of like content creation for a little bit, and there's a huge trend around authentic content. People do want to see you. They want to see the person that's going to be then talking to them specifically about their own solution, versus some, slightly American accented lady talking through about, oh, and this is what we do at our company. Our company is great, right? And let's be very clear. Customers don't want that. They want things that are specifically for them, and who knows them better than you, the person talking to them. So really, if you ever get that pushback of like, oh, the quality is not that great, again, leaders, please cover your ears for a second. Individual contributors, just go around and post it somewhere else and just send it directly to customers and see the feedback. That's actually how you will push folks within the organization to see the benefits of what you're doing, because that's what I did. I went around the funnel and sort of sneakily posted things and sent it to people. And then when it was successful, only then did I show it to the folks that actually had to approve this. So it's a little bit of a asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Because if you're asking for permission, again, lead time can be between 6 weeks and never. Right? So forgiveness tends to be, and it does come, right? And the thing is, you will be successful in one way or another. At the very least, people would be interested to talk to you. And that is our goal. We want people to talk to us. But anyway, let me talk you through, if you do want to do some of this stuff, when it comes to the whiteboarding bits and pieces, how can you actually get started? The easiest one to do is starting with just your desk, right? So quick show of hands. Do people do whiteboarding often? Right? So we're talking about we're talking about this sort of stuff where you're completely hands-free, completely, no slides, no demo, no nothing. Just a quick, yes, I do whiteboarding. No, I don't do whiteboarding. In the chat. Keep them rolling, folks. Thank you so much for the engagement, by the way. It's really nice to actually have like a little bit of a back and forth and actually have folks to have a chat. That is a lot of no's. A lot of no's. That is very, very sad. Never had the opportunity. Yeah, lucid whiteboarding, amazing. Amazing. So even, what was I there with the live software? So again, in my field SC role, I did a lot of live demoing, right? Like the actual, UI was there. I had to walk people through a lot of the processes, right? So I was doing networking, infrastructure, and security, right? So especially in a very technical space, like you need to be showing like people the actual product. You can't just sort of like, whiz your way through slides. That didn't work. So I always use whiteboarding as the start of the conversation. That was where it's like, okay, so this is what we have, folks. So this is where you are. This is what we need to be. Yada yada yada. Right. By the way, keep in mind, and then I'll talk a little bit, a little bit about it later. I do have a lot of templates and things to help folks coming into whiteboarding, but let's talk about the practicalities of how do we actually do it first. So the easiest and the cheapest way to start with all of this whiteboarding is to do a desk setup, right? And what I mean by that, and I've sort of like highlighted a couple of the key points here, is one, to have a webcam, right? So the idea is that you have an arm somewhere on your desk and a webcam pointed at the actual desk itself, where you have a small little whiteboard with a pen, right? So actually like super manual, and you have that set up. That is the cheapest thing, or, it can go up, quite expensive if you are using, depending on the camera, depending on the arm. But the cheapest setup that I first got, sort of working was I was using the webcam that I was provided to from work. I had another webcam that was actually for the, the conversation piece. And then I bought an arm from Amazon for £20, pointed it at my desk, and I had a piece of paper actually, talking to people about it. And there's a lot of settings in all of the programs that we use for video conferencing. And by the way, this is mostly for, I'm talking here like virtual whiteboarding, because as we saw actually in this previous session, more than 90% of folks do all of their, demoing actually online. Most of it is virtual nowadays. So this is all completely for virtual. I can, in the, we can talk about like actual physical ones. If folks have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A, but I'll focus on the virtual side for now. So yeah, so that the desk setup is really baby's first steps to whiteboarding. Have that, be comfortable in the physical medium that you are, you do know you are comfortable, so you can actually easily get that up. Oh, also, by the way, sorry that I keep on doing this. This week is incredibly uncomfortable. So, and it's cheap and cheerful, so you don't have to start really, from scratch. Especially, you most likely have a lot of these bits doing that. The next step, and that's really where I found my groove when it comes to with whiteboarding, it's actually starting to use a tablet. So you have two options there. One could be the Wacom tablet. So if folks are not familiar, that's a brand of drawing tablets. It's usually used for artists. The cheapest one you can buy is £20. I'll say like, conversion rate, sorry folks, over in the US, what, like $25, something like that. So they're very cheap and cheerful. They hook into whatever machine, Mac, Windows, whatever it is. And practically what you do is you actually write on the tablet itself, and it shows onto the monitor as you're actually talking. So you can use Paint for that. You can use whatever free software you want for that. And it's really easy to actually get in. The only challenge there is about the fact that the tablet and the screen that actually sees the results are two different things. And that tends to cause people a little bit of a dissociation. But you can go over that. So I did learn, earlier in my life how to do that. But objectively, if you have an iPad and a pen, it is much easier. But again, we're talking about like the middle range here, right? So you can start relatively easy from just buying that Wacom tablet, using Paint and actually going through that, to all the way of getting the newest iPad Air with the pencil for like £800, $900 or whatever it is in, over in the US. But that is really where you start being able to do some really fun things. Like, for example, you draw. Like, my favorite thing to do when I was working with customers was we would spend, an hour together going through stuff. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, let me actually forward this to you and actually send them the work we've done together without actually having to take pictures or anything like that. And they all found it incredibly useful because it was a reference and a note for everything we were doing together. The last piece, and I will go into a lot more details into when I'm actually ready to publish the second version of Whiteboarding for Pre-Sales, which is an ebook I published last DemoFest and shared with the folks there in London. And it's completely free, by the way. I just need to update it because, as I mentioned, health problems. I haven't been able to do it yet. Apologies. But I will get to it as soon as possible. And it will detail all of this in a lot more, where to buy them from, what are you looking at, what am I talking about in more details. So don't worry if you have more questions around the practicalities of this. But the last one is really what you're seeing today, right? Which is my newest sort of toy. And I'm loving it to bits, as you can tell, because I've gone completely wild on it. But the key things there is something called an ATEM Mini. That is the actual input for all of the, that's how the magic, I'll ruin the magic a little bit to talk you through like how do I actually do it. But obviously like the camera that I'm talking to is coming into an input, and they have the iPad with a black background and using something called a Luma key. Again, don't worry about the details too much because I will document all of this and we'll share it with folks if they do want to have a setup like this. Looking at Rue Dickinson's session earlier, like again, on the receiving side of that, I was just like, oh my goodness, like that looks so cool. Ruse is a little bit like is the next step because he has an actual light board. I keep on calling this the budget light board because instead of the 3,000-4,000 pounds that piece of glass that Rue is scribing on costs, this whole setup with caveats, I had the iPad ahead of time, I had the Mac ahead of time. All of this costed £600. So really, but that's the, I would say, the dream setup. That is once you've decided that whiteboarding is really important to you and you are using it, that is when that point becomes really an investment. But I know showing this to a couple of leaders in pre-sales, a lot of the feedback I got is like, ooh, I need to get my team invested in this. So there's definitely a space to actually have a play with this. The other thing I want to share is also that tools are not everything, by the way. In that same book, I talk about the different levels of whiteboarding. So again, because there was a lot of no's in the I've never whiteboarded before, or I don't get the chance to whiteboard. So keep in mind in that pre-sale, like whiteboarding for pre-sales ebook that I will be publishing soon, like the new version. The old version, by the way, is available on my LinkedIn as well, so you can get it today. It's just the new one. I haven't finished it yet. But there are different levels of being comfortable with whiteboarding. And really, for a lot of the folks that the answer is no, the first step is about like, I have so much structure for you to work around. There are templates about like how to actually set up a meeting. Where do I put this? What are the different shapes that I need to learn to do? How do I actually write in this clear matter? Like, as you can, I don't know if folks have noticed, drinking your own champagne sort of moment, but all of the letters I'm using are actually capital letters. And that's on purpose because it is the clearest way to actually write, in a sharing environment. And the only difference is obviously like the first letter in the sentence would always be, a larger capital, just because again, folks are used to seeing a larger letter at the beginning of a sentence. There's a huge amount of science of how to actually do this sort of stuff, but I do simplify it and make it as easy as approachable for folks in that ebook. Level 2 would then be like, when do you actually start thinking about colors and creating stencils, particularly for what job you do? And I think for folks that do, and this is a really funny one, for folks that are used to doing whiteboarding in a physical sense, aka they've used to do it in face-to-face meetings and now are moving to digital, this is where you get the problem of the meandering and the scared. Right. So a lot of us who have done whiteboarding a lot in the past tend to have this problem of like, oh, we tend to meander so much and we just do a whole bunch of things as we're going along. But in reality, that's really also figured by structure. So really, it's really useful to sort of consider as you're going along in this journey, and it is a journey, right, of how do you actually implement all of these tools when it comes to the actual writing. As promised, I did say that there is specific automaton in the demo automation. It's just about like how does this all work within a specific tool like Consensus? Like, let's say that you are on this journey of like, okay, we're a Consensus customer, and we do want to actually, we do just want to do the micro demos. We want to do all of the bits and pieces that we want to do. We want to do, all of the videos that within that program. How do we implement, if we do want to do that, the whiteboarding skills? And speaking to Mark Green within Consensus about this topic, really, these are the places that I see videos like this actually be implemented within a pre-sales demo automation structure. So personal intro, as you send the videos to folks, could easily be you speaking or someone else speaking with a diagram, with something as you're walking them through to make sure that they understand what is the value that you are providing them on top of the features and functions that you show them throughout the course. Demo intro, again, explaining why are we here, what you're going to show them, how you're going to do them. There is something called short videos in Consensus that if folks pick somewhat important in their questionnaire, you can choose, it's optional, you can show them a shorter video. So why, instead of showing features and functions, why don't you show them a short video of you whiteboarding? How are those things related and how are they important to the value or the goal that they're trying to achieve? And same within tours now, right? Within tours, you can add to the different elements within the UI, within Consensus, you can add a video to a specific point in that. And a really cool metric that, again, Mark Green shared with me, and there will be a session at this, I think it's the session after, from a gentleman called Matt, that 12 views on those videos lead to 70% more lead conversion. And that's a data point that they have within Consensus to prove that the moment a video gets 12 or more views, that is associated within the actual CRM. And I think that's amazing and again, and it shows how valuable these are and how you can add the human element to a particularly automated process. And really, as we're wrapping up and as we're now meeting our enemy at the end, our deal dragon, I do want to highlight something, that the most important part of just getting the features out there, just getting a demo out there, just doing the right things in its SE is sometimes not enough. Because again, if you remember, I mentioned at the beginning, it is a human process. People remember other people. So 50% of really our job is to be memorable, is to be that folk hero that folks will remember at the end of the session, say like, oh yeah, I remember Lydia. She had that really cool like whiteboarding thing that she was doing. And it really helped clarify what we need. Even again, if it's not about buying, because remember, in that buyer journey at the end, there is this cycle of, buying, renewing, expanding. That is really important for us to be hooked into that process. And having something memorable, having people wanting to work with you is 50% of that battle. So please, please, please don't ever underestimate the importance of being that hero for folks within the buying process. If you're going to leave with something after the session, is one, please enjoy the rest of DemoFest. It's amazing. And do register for the live ones. I would love to see folks that are on the European side come join us at London. It's always really good fun. The second thing is, one, again, do you whiteboard regularly? A lot of folks already posted that in the chat. And if yes, how can you level up? How can you become better? How can you make it even more memorable for folks? And if no, the first thing, the smallest thing you can do really is create a little intro to your default demo, right? You're doing a 40-minute live demo for, like an intro demo. Create a 5-minute sort of like, okay, folks, before we jump into the demo, let me connect for you what are the different bits and pieces that we need to do. And of course, the most important part is get yourself a wizarding hat and please be your very best, because I know you are. And I can't wait to see a lot of folks doing more and more of this stuff as we're going forward. But really, that's all from me. Thank you so much for being with me and listening to me talking through this stuff. A couple of important things that obviously, if I don't say them, I'm a bad business person. I do have a podcast. It's called the Wandering Tech Podcast with Paul Harris. We post every 2 weeks, and we talk about everything from pre-sales to tech to last time we were talking about why QWERTY is not the particularly good keyboard setup. We've talked about gaming, all sorts of bits and pieces. And obviously, if you do want to get the Whiteboarding for Pre-Sales version 2, either follow me on LinkedIn as Lydia Vasileva. You can see it on the bottom over there with my name and the titles. Or you can find more information on packetmage.com, which is my website, and you will see a waitlist form there to actually fill in. I'm conscious that I want to give some time for Q&A, and if that's okay for folks, I'm just going to go there now. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of questions. Oh, hi.
Yes, hello. I was trying to use my magic to bring some questions. I'm not sure if it goes well, but we have some questions anyway. I think that the most upvoted is on the very top. I hope you can see the question.
Yep.
Okay.
It's from Ellie Silver. So can you talk more about how you can make a demo more conversational when you also have to show the product? Absolutely. Right. So the easiest way to do is to continually ask questions, and not in the very annoying sense of like, is this okay? Does this make sense? You obviously don't ever use the question, does this make sense? Because it's never really useful, but it's just to keep on reconnecting with folks and sort of lead and lean and give them sort of like a hint around what it is you're doing. Similar to how, so an example, I'm trying to think of an example I was doing like during my field SE role. The best example was to initially again ask how familiar are folks with the product, how familiar they are with the technology, and just to make sure that every step along the way, do they see themselves using it? Do they see themselves a problem with their current day-to-day of why they shouldn't? By the way, I keep on feeding you questions that I used to ask. So do they see, a reason they wouldn't use this? Do they see a reason why they should be using this? Do they see how helpful this would be in their day-to-day, this particular product that you're trying to sell them? What else are they using? And the idea is not to do a sort of a questioning at the beginning, like you're not trying to interrogate them at the start. What you can do is do the initial couple of questions just to warm them up before you start the demo. But then as you're going along, prepare your questions in between them, your qualifying questions throughout your actual demo to make it a conversation, and also to give them time, because that's a really important point. Whenever you're demonstrating something for a long time, folks need a second sort of like, okay, I've seen this. I need to sort of work this through in my brain. Okay, there's a question. Let me think about the question. Okay, now this makes more sense. We can continue with the actual demo. So really, it's about like scattering those initial, if you have like a list of qualifying questions that you have at the start, try to spread them out throughout the demonstration, or use some as again, feeding them questions. How do you see them using it? How do they see them? What's the problem with them using it, etc., etc. Be curious. Really, at the end of the day, it's about being extremely curious about what they're doing. Thank you, Ellie, for that question. Hopefully that helps. And if not, please feel free to connect with me and we can have a conversation thereafter. Another one. I'm just conscious, by the way, Daniel, I want to make sure that you have time like to do the outro at the end. But there's one from Cooper.
Yeah, I think we should go with this one. And there's one more. So yeah, we should have time for this.
Yeah, no worries. So Cooper is saying, how do you go about whiteboarding for complicated software? That is a really good question, because again, that's what I used to do when I was part of VMware. So I was presenting the entirety of the networking security portfolio at VMware, which was 6 products, all interconnected. Talking, if folks are aware of network engineering and cybersecurity, they know that none of these are simple topics that you can just sort of very easily introduce. Whiteboarding is absolute king there. How is a very big question, because it is about, well, I guess simplifying it is really the answer. You have to take whatever it is, the thing that you're trying to explain, align it with the level of the folks that you're talking to. So again, you would know this is part of the qualifying questions and part of the conversation you're having before the session with whiteboarding. So you can actually explain it to them, at their level, what it is that has to happen. An example I always use is microsegmentation, right? So that's a security principle or concept around limiting different workloads within an environment, in smaller groups so they don't get attacked, right? Even just the way I explained it that shortly already sounds incredibly complicated. It's just about you, in particular, Cooper, finding your own language, the own way that you can easily explain it to yourself. So now that you are very confident in, you have that consistency in the way you speak, but also trialing it out on different folks. So the easiest one to do is like, again, the micro-segmentation piece. I explained it to my mom. I explained it to my account manager. I explained it to my customers. I explained it to my boss. And everyone came back with different feedback around like, okay, this makes sense to me. This one doesn't. Change this, change that. So it's just, again, reiterating. And as Art said in the chat, practice, practice, practice until you get to that point. Just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's impossible. And if you're interested, Cooper, reach out to me and I will send you the video I have privately on my YouTube channel, which is about how do I explain the entirety of the VMware portfolio in 3 minutes via whiteboard. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we have also a question from Ashley. Does whiteboarding have a place in the videos automated demos you send in the advance? Or is whiteboarding only relevant for the live calls? And I think this is a very interesting one.
Yeah. And fantastic question there, Ashley. And I really answered it in one of the slides when I was talking about consensus in particular. So I believe that's the space where whiteboarding can live in this demo automation world, in the videos that you send. So you can have a little slice of it right before. So right, because it's a video file, you can have the initial part of that video be the whiteboarding. It be the explanation, the intro, let's say, to your demonstration, and then have the demonstration like as the second part of that video. So you can have both within the one file that you're sending as part of consensus. Or even better, again, is to use the different formats that you have within consensus as a tool to pick and choose where whiteboarding or where more conversational, video would make a lot more sense rather than just a software demonstration. But yeah.
All right. Okay, so 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. If you scroll down to the very bottom, there's one more question from Breland. I hope I'm spelling this right, about micro demos. And maybe this one is something you can also touch a little bit.
Oh, it has to be fast. Okay, Berlin. So how would you create a micro demo for an audience that wants micro demos, but usually is not able to see themselves in the software without a person speaking to them in the data fields? Mark talked about multiple automated demos for each personas. Like, yep. So for different, so CFOs, CTOs, etc. Any suggestions? Ooh, that's not a quick question.
Well,
a quick suggestion
you have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, no pressure. Well, first of all, there are ways to do those automated. Okay, whiteboarding is a really easy way to make it a bespoke because, again, like you have the freedom. You don't have to change the software you're actually demonstrating to be able to make it individual for the person you're actually sending it to. Within consensus, you can send personalized demos that you have like a little video right at the beginning that could be addressed to a particular person, from themselves. You can say like, "Oh, Breland, hi, it was a pleasure talking to you. Like, 2 weeks ago, you as a CTO, you care about this and this and this. In the next, in the following videos, you will see this and these features that matter to you in particular because of this." So you still get that personalization without having to touch any of the micro demos that you've already created. That would be my first suggestion, is to utilize the tool and just make some of the pieces very relevant to them and the other ones just to be as a pointer so you don't have to replicate the work that you're actually doing. Awesome question.
Okay, so I think that we can be done with the Q&A. Thank you very much. We are very excited to bringing DemoFest on the road again as DemoFest X. And we know we had a great time in San Francisco in February, and we can't wait to bring the event to London and New York City again later this year. You can register to join us at either of these events at demofest.com or at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. We also encourage you to stop by our expo hall to visit our premier partners of DemoFest. Remember, there is no transfer of money involved in this event, so all our partners here have gone above and beyond to contribute to making this event a success for all of you. So thank you all for joining us for this session, and thank you to Lydia for this valuable insight and knowledge. Standing ovation. Up on the screen are the upcoming sessions. You will automatically be pushed to the next session in your track, or you can switch tracks or sessions by toggling to the agenda tab on the top left of your screen. We will see you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone. It was so much fun.
Thank you.